Hello, my name is Nkhensani. Nkwashu. I'm a journalist at ITWeb. I'm joined in studio by Advocate Jacqueline Fick. She's a CEO at Viz Strat Solutions. Thank you for joining us, Advocate.
Nkhensani, thank you very much for having me, talking about my favorite things in life.
Okay. I'm looking forward to our interview. In your presentation, the title is demonstrating the business value of cybersecurity. Are you getting the sense that organizations don't get the business value, or that it's deprioritized amongst them?
Very good question. So in the first instance, in my presentation, I'm talking a little bit also about defining cybercrime. Do we really need to do that? And what are we doing about addressing cybercrime? And when we take it into the business sphere, when we talk about cybersecurity, we're still thinking it's like insurance. It's that grudge payment that you only appreciate when things go wrong. And unfortunately, today, things do go wrong, and they're going wrong more and more and more. Are they really seeing the value of putting measures in place? I don't think fully yet. And that's why what I am actually prophesizing about is the law is not there to hurt you. The law is not there to make a burden for you. The law is there to tell you what the rules of the game is, how we should be doing things, because eventually what it is all about is protecting you and making you do business even better.
Okay. And what more can we do to increase the agency and interest?
I think if you want urgency, you need to understand first. And this is why I think a lot of the work that I do is focused on awareness, on, I won't say training as much as it is awareness and development, because we first have to know before we can understand and attach the appropriate value to it. So having your organization know laws and standards, because laws and standards go together when it comes to cybersecurity, cybercrime, and of course data privacy. Understanding that and understanding where it fits within your business should be a priority for all of us. Now, a lot of the time when I deal with companies, and I'd also do a lot of work with governments, the understand phase of the basic concepts is not there. We all hear up. Let me take AI for an example. We all know about AI. So it's like a fox terrier that caught a bus. So what now? We know about this, but do we know what the implications of that is for my business? Because once we do that, I always say if you give a label to something, you know where it is and you can recognize it and you can give the appropriate attention to it. So for me, that is an extremely important one. And don't feel so hateful towards the law anymore.
Yeah.
Yes, it can be tough. We all went through this popia, I call it popia paralysis, because it was this thing for us, and it's difficult to understand why I should be spending all this time and money if I don't understand what the strategic benefit of that to my organization is.
That's true. Is legal compliance more of a carrot to organizations than having been hit by an actual attack?
I think if we talk about the carrot, I think businesses are only seeing the stick right now because they feel they're being hit by the stick.
Yeah.
So the carrot of compliance is that you're not faced with a lot of fines. But that stick that we are so worried about, we focus on it so much that we don't enjoy eating the carrot. And the eating of that carrot is, if we look at cybersecurity, and as I said, look at those three: data privacy, cybersecurity, and then addressing cybercrime. Because why do we put security in place? It is to guard against things. And if we look at that, the carrot actually becomes the survival of my business today. Not compliance, but the survival of my business. I always demonstrate cybersecurity and cybercrime as two parts of the same coin. And that coin is your most valuable contribution into the purse of e-commerce. Now, what would we do in our businesses these days that don't rely on technology? And why do we bring those things in? We bring it in to make more business, to make more money. And unfortunately, you can't do that anymore these days without having that trust element that can only be brought in by cybersecurity.
Okay. This is a very long question. You'll have to bear with me. Michelson says in its overview of the Cybersecurity Act that the practical impact of Cybercrimes Act on all organizations and all individuals is significant and unfortunately mostly negative. Law enforcement wants to curtail our freedom by making everyday things a crime. It impacts all of us who process data or use a computer. Why do they view it as a negative, and why do they think it impacts everyone who uses a computer?
So firstly, in my capacity as an advocate, I'm going to say that I respectfully disagree with Michelson's attorneys, and I'm going to say why.
Okay.
It's a very blanket statement. If there's certain elements of that statement, maybe we can discuss it. But I want to say to you a what-if scenario. The Cybercrimes Act is more than just saying we have criminal conduct and you can go to the chookie for that. The Cybercrimes Act also has provisions about how we should be gathering digital evidence, the things that we need to put those crooks behind bars. The Cybercrimes Act further contains a lot of measures that help us to coordinate and to address crimes that happen in other countries or crimes that happen in South Africa that have my digital evidence in another country. It helps us to cooperate to address something that we call a borderless crime, which is cybercrime. It also provides you with measures that ensure the law says I should be training people. Now, if we just go and look at cyber conduct, those things that we say is a no-no. One of the things, let's take any of the offenses. Let's take the intimate images. How would you feel if somebody took your pictures that you and your husband or your boyfriend made in private and goes and puts it on Pornhub? Would you be okay if nobody is put behind bars for that?
No.
Well, it's an everyday thing. I mean, how would you feel if those pictures were of your child? How would you feel at ITWeb if somebody deployed ransomware against your company if I could not hold anybody criminally liable? I think also the focus there are 3 offenses. The one is this intimate images, but the other 2 is the use of communications platforms to use it to distribute harmful communications. Let's think back to what happened in KZN with that violence in July, 2021. What happened there was people used social media.
I'm talking about the unrest.
Yeah,
The
unrest. Social media was used to incite violence, to get people to go and burn businesses down. You remember that?
I do.
At that stage, the Cybercrimes Act was not in operation yet. We didn't have anything to hold those people criminally liable for distributing those things. And there is nothing as sad as suffering criminal harm and not being able to take something to court. Do you know before the Cybercrimes Act came into operation, and specifically Section 12, I could steal the databases of all your clients and go and open up my own business.
Your own business,
The theft of incorporeal things like data was not theft as we know it. So, with no disrespect, I disagree.
Okay.
The reason also, just closing that answer, is things are always balanced. You know, if we look at justice, it's that scale. there must always be a balance. You cannot have one party rights more important than the other one. And here it's a balance. You can exercise your rights to freedom of speech and a lot of other things, but you cannot do it at the cost of somebody else. And this is the beauty of the law. It brings balance.
Would you say, how does the focus on the Cybercrime Act differ from that of the Cybersecurity Bill?
I don't think it differs. If you see it through the lens that cybersecurity is all about protecting things, and cybercrime is if there's a crook involved and there's criminal conduct, and I need to put somebody behind bars or fine them or things like that. So there's always a balance. The other important thing is, if you look at it from a cybercrime perspective, all my whodunit evidence that I need is created in this world of cybersecurity. The way I set my systems up, they log my evidence. So there's always an interrelation between the two. Cybersecurity, for example, you would like to declare critical information infrastructure there, have additional measures because it's so important. If something goes wrong in that sphere, I don't have banks, I don't have telecommunications, and my life is going to be a little bit miserable. But again, the cybercrime aspect of it means that I have to set up my systems in such a way that I can eventually have a court-driven process and I can hold people accountable. Now, the same applies with POPIA and data privacy and data protection. That breach, if that breach happens, it usually happens in the sphere of cybersecurity. But it's not necessarily something that I involve the police in. It might be information regulator. And there's breaches. But yet, even with a breach that doesn't amount to an offense under the Cybercrimes Act, what am I going to have to do at the end? I have to account to my data subjects about how did it happen that your information is now on WikiLeaks. And again, that interaction is all about securing evidence.
Okay. And what are the key updates or developments in the implementations of South Africa's Cybercrime Act? Have we seen any successful prosecutions yet under the law?
We have indeed. So the Act came into partial operation in December 2021. And since then, remember, a criminal investigation usually is first about gathering the evidence, and it also is very specifically anything committed before 1 December 2021 would still have been prosecuted under other legislation such as the ECT Act, the Electronic Communications and Transactions Act. So the line in the sand for us is what has happened since December 2021. I can say this because I've been very much involved in helping the police designing cyber crime training programs for them. Of course, with the funding from people like the FCDO from the United Kingdom. But what we've seen is that evidence is now gathered in accordance with the provisions of especially Chapter 4 of the Cybercrimes Act. Your search warrants are drafted in terms of that. And we've already seen now prosecutions being done using the crimes as set out in Part 1 and Part 2 of Chapter 2 of the Cybercrimes Act. I mean, there was recently one about high-placed individuals whose faces were put on porn movies. So yes, we do see the benefit of having those crimes in our laws now going into our court environment. We also see that there have been some court cases already. Remember in that part of the investigation about the search warrants that need to be obtained in terms of specifically Section 29 of the Cybercrimes Act. So yes, definitely, the law's being put to good use.
Okay. Is the justice cluster adequately equipped to deal with cybercrimes? And what more needs to be done? Is the government appetite to invest in this area?
Firstly, I think with cyber, we single out government. But remember, I started off by saying to you that that awareness thing and the understand phase, that is just as important for government as it is for the private sector. So we need to understand what we're dealing with. Being an old prosecutor and investigator, we profile somebody. We need to understand who we are dealing with, who's our criminal, what drives them, what motivates them, and how do they commit their crimes. So that is a big focus. And I can tell you that there have been a lot of work done, both in the law enforcement space as well as in the prosecution, in terms of raising awareness and, of course, taking these matters to court. You can imagine about understanding, but you can't catch a crook. If you don't understand it, you can't catch a crook and put him behind bars if you don't have the evidence to do that, because any case is only as strong as the facts that I'm able to present in a court of law. So there is definitely a move, and the next question is always, what more is to be done? There's always more to be done because technology is a moving target. So definitely a lot more to be done, but government and law enforcement and prosecutors can't do it on its own. This is a responsibility that cuts across all disciplines and that requires cooperation between the private sector and government and other institutions to make a success of putting cyber criminals behind bars.
Yes, yeah. As we wrap up, what is the significance of the UN Convention on Cybercrime, and what might its ratification mean for countries like South Africa?
So South Africa was indeed very much involved in the drafting of the UN Convention on Cybercrime, and the convention will be open for the signature. I think it is from the 25th of October 2025, and then it's open until the 40th country signs, but it's usually for about a year. So we first had the Budapest Convention, and the offences there, South Africa signed but never ratified, but yet the structure of our Cybercrimes Act is very similar to what we have there. And if we look at the UN Convention, we're dealing with a borderless crime. So this is not a South Africa problem. It is us in terms of the world. When you look at these investigations, you have to find a way to work together, because otherwise these cyber criminals will go and find a little home where there's not laws and people are not able to take the profit out of crime and to put them behind bars. So I do believe that this is a big step for South Africa should they sign and ratify this convention, in terms of what is our stance on cybercrime and how are we going to cooperate with our international partners to put these people behind bars, because a borderless crime doesn't respect borders. And that is what the cyber criminals rely on. So this is a big, big weapon in our toolkit to actually put a few spikes in the road for cyber criminals.
Okay. This is I don't have it on my questions, but I would like to know what are your key takeaway from the summit so far?
I love the diversity, and I think talking about cross borders, look how many international speakers we've had. And what is the beauty? We all have that common ground. We all want to increase cybersecurity. And secondly, we all have the same woes, don't we? So I found it very enriching.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for joining us, Advocate. It was lovely chatting to you. I hope to see you around. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. We're signing out.